Alright, this is another Andy book. This is the Avengers one. Avengers Roll Call. This was the last Andy book Marvel ever did. It came out in 2012. One good thing about this series ending means that nothing after 2012 ever enters into the canon of the official Andy book to the Marvel Universe. This cover is by Aero Oliver Ritchie. It leaves somewhat to be desired. It doesn't really represent the Andy book well. It feels like a mediocre portfolio piece rather than the cover to an Andy book. This one specialises in the Avengers, obviously, giving us updates on some of the Avengers, profiles for new characters, ones for things that haven't received an entry before, stuff like that. I always saw this as a fairly weak offering and a sad ending to the series, as most of what is in here isn't especially interesting or exciting. I felt the Captain America and the Defenders Andy books were much more enjoyable. This one seems to very narrowly feature new stuff, or stuff that didn't have a profile for a good reason. We have an Avengers update, which is super dull. The only image on these 2 pages is this lifeless Danny Tuna one. Fucking hate that guy's art. And the Avengers profiles have always been a bit crap, because over 2 decades ago, Kurt Busey and Tom Beevort, they decided what was canon and when somebody joined the team, and nobody has been allowed to overturn or correct that information. There's some stuff that is flagrantly wrong. It's just a totally crap list, but it is the only canon, even though there is mistakes all over it. Stuff like Avengers 173 being pointed to as the issue for several characters joining the team, even though in that issue they are referred to as old members of the team. So this was the last Andy book they did, and it does feel at points like they were tapping out. We have an update for Scarlett Johansson and a terrible picture of her. There's a lot of that in this one. They gone back to using pictures from actual comics rather than getting new art done by that one artist. So you have a lot of badly posed characters like this. And you can see on this one, they are not making the most of the space. We have more white than we really should. Centre this, didn't push it to the right to fit this little inlay of her using her powers into the box. Put that somewhere in the profile. Then we have an update for Captain America we just had a Captain America update a year earlier in the Captain America Handbook. And again, they are using art from a cover. And I really think this last Handbook was a step back from some of the quality ones that they had put out before. I fucking hate the cat, people. Let me just say that. Boring shite. Now here is a better profile. It even has a new profile image by that artist who had done them for the other recent handbooks. This was some catching up. The original Galactical Guardians, they never had individual profiles, surprisingly, so they started trying to get them done. I didn't think we got them all before the handbooks died. I think we have another example of that coming up with the Great Lakes Avengers. I didn't think we got all of them. A lot of them got squeezed into the Dead Pills handbook. But I didn't think we ever got a profile for Flatman. I might be wrong on that. Maybe he was in the Dead Pills handbook and I am forgetting. So, prove me wrong, children. Prove me wrong. Terrible retcon character here. And then terrible Benson character, and after that, terrible Hawkeye redesign. Hawkeye, he gets an update, but it is almost a full profile for him. It is 4 pages, and it does really gloss over some stuff. Like Thunderballs gets 1 sentence, but Ninja Hawkeye Rubbish gets multiple paragraphs. You wouldn't think that Hawkeye, of all people, would have a power section this fucking long. We then have his gimmick arrows. It shows all of, or nearly all of, his trick arrows that he has used over the years. And didn't be thinking that it is just 1 page. It's not the most interesting of things, but this is something that I feel there was effort put into. It's just not something I think most people would care that much to digest. We've also got coming up a really bad Hulk update with a really bad picture. The one thing you didn't want with Hulk is for him to have the smallest picture in the entire thing. I also find the updates, I complained about them last time, but I find the updates very begrudging. It's like, yeah, this happened and this happened, rather than actually updating readers on the important things that have happened. Like in Hulk's case, he has been at the centre of 3 different crossovers. He was also in Chow's War and had a big part in Fear on Shelf. But it's more like a rundown of bullet points than an actual update to the previous entries. We also have an Iron Man update, which is 2 paragraphs. Begs the question why they are even bothering with these updates. The first paragraph is just recapping how he became Iron Man. So one paragraph of this is an actual update. We are nearing the point where I have less and less to say. So here is a Tom Hiddleston update. This is when he was changed into a kid. And it is a crap update because it doesn't even mention Mighty Avengers or him posing as Charlotte Witch or anything from that book anywhere on this supposed update. So, sod this. In many ways, this does live up to the title of the last Andy book they ever did, because it's just not as good as what came before. Did it deserve to die? No. But if they were going to continue in this loo with poorly laid out profiles, useless updates, missing information, bad character shots, even a cover like this that could be for any random Avengers movie tie-in comic. Maybe it was a good thing that they didn't do more. This seemed to be following the trend of the Marvel Universe in that only Benson stories are important. We have this big profile on Hawkeye, and we get several paragraphs about all the stuff Benson wrote. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't mention stuff because I didn't like it. I'm saying you shouldn't mention it if it is as irrelevant as telling us about Siege in a Hawkeye profile, when in Siege and all of its tie-ins, Hawkeye did absolutely nothing of any note. Benson's stories get shoved down our throats and bigged up by these profiles when they didn't even mention Hawkeye's relationship with Moonstomp in Thunderbals. Or if you want to pretend that it is just an update, then why isn't it telling us about when Hawkeye almost became the replacement Captain America instead of Bucky Man? Both those things are more important than explaining a crossover that had nothing to do with Hawkeye. Same with Tom Hiddleston. Most of his update is all Benson stories. Not 4 stories, very little information from 4 comics is shared. It doesn't even mention that his female form was Thor's girlfriend's body. It didn't even show a picture of his female form. But it went in depth about all the Dark Avengers and Siege stuff. I'm not kidding, it didn't even mention anything anywhere about Mighty Avengers or Charlotte Witch or him bringing that team together. Iron Man's single paragraph is less about Iron Man series and just about Benson crossovers. So all that annoyed me, and the profile choices themselves are a mix of uninspired and boring. Little of it feels related to the Avengers. It is a very loose theme, and most of what it is giving us profiles for are bloody boring. It's sad to see Summit of Love gone away for good after this, but it's sad to see it get a bit crappy before it went. That's why I have to award this 7 thumbs up.